During the toast at my best friend's wedding, the best man whispered, "Don't drink from your glass." His voice was so quiet that I barely heard him over the ambient chatter and clinking of champagne flutes. I froze, my smile still plastered on my face as I stared at him in confusion. David, the best man, was my boyfriend Mark's older brother. He had always been kind to me, if a bit distant. Now his eyes were filled with an urgency I'd never seen before. "What?" I mouthed, but he had already turned away, raising his glass toward the happy couple. "To Jessica and Michael," David proclaimed loudly. "May your love only grow stronger with each passing day." The room erupted in cheers. I watched as everyone took a sip from their glasses. My hand trembled slightly as I lowered my champagne without letting it touch my lips. I glanced around, wondering if anyone had noticed. The bride, my best friend Jessica, was beaming at her new husband. They looked perfect together, she in her stunning white gown, he in his tailored tuxedo. I had known Jessica since our freshman year of college. We had been roommates, confidants, sisters, in all but blood. When she'd asked me to be her maid of honor, I'd cried with joy. Now, on what should have been one of the happiest days of her life, I felt a chill run down my spine. My boyfriend Mark was seated beside me, his hand resting possessively on my thigh. He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "Why aren't you drinking? It's a celebration." "Just waiting for the bubbles to settle," I lied, forcing another smile. Mark's eyes narrowed slightly, but he nodded and turned his attention back to the head table. We'd been together for 2 years, introduced by Jessica and Michael. Mark was Michael's college roommate, and when we had all gone out for dinner one night, Jessica had been convinced we would hit it off. She had been right at first. The waiters began serving the first course, and I used the distraction to examine my champagne flute more closely. The liquid looked normal, golden and bubbly. I discreetly brought it to my nose. No unusual smell. What had David been warning me about? As the meal progressed, I barely touched my food. My mind raced with possibilities, each more alarming than the last. Was there something in my drink specifically, or in all the champagne? And why would David warn only me? I excused myself to the restroom, taking my clutch with me. Once inside a stall, I pulled out my phone and texted David. "What's going on with my drink?" 3 minutes later, as I was washing my hands, my phone buzzed with his reply. "Meet me by the service entrance in 5 minutes. Come alone." My heart pounded as I made my way through the reception hall. I told Mark I needed some air and slipped out before he could offer to join me. The service entrance was at the back of the venue, away from the main celebration. As I approached, I saw David pacing nervously. "Thank God you didn't drink it," he said when he saw me, running a hand through his hair. "David, what's happening? You're scaring me." He looked around to ensure we were alone. "I overheard Mark and Michael talking earlier, in the groom's suite. They put something in your drink." My blood ran cold. "What? Why would they do that?" "I don't know exactly what it was, but Mark said something about making sure you were cooperative later." David's face was grim. "I know my brother. The way he said it, it wasn't good, Emma." I felt dizzy suddenly, leaning against the wall for support. "Are you saying my boyfriend and my best friend's husband were planning to drug me?" "I think so, yes, and—" David hesitated. "I think Jessica might know about it." That statement hit me like a physical blow. Jessica. My Jessica. The woman who had held my hair back when I was sick with food poisoning, who had stayed up all night helping me study for finals, who had cried with me when my mother was diagnosed with cancer. "No," I whispered, "she wouldn't." "I saw her nod when Mark switched your glass. That's why I warned you." David's eyes were sympathetic but firm. "Emma, I don't think you're safe here." My mind flashed to the last few months, how Mark had become increasingly controlling, checking my phone, questioning my whereabouts. How Jessica had gradually stopped inviting me to girls' nights, claiming she was too busy with wedding planning. How Michael always seemed to be watching me with an unsettling intensity. "I need to confront them," I said, straightening up. David grabbed my arm. "Not here, not now. They're surrounded by people who adore them. It's their wedding day. No one will believe you." "Then what do I do?" My voice cracked. "Let me drive you home. We'll figure this out together, but right now, you need to get away from here." I hesitated, torn between the need for answers and the instinct for self-preservation. Finally, I nodded. "I need to get my purse from the table. I'll wait for you by my car. Be casual. Don't let them suspect anything." I walked back into the reception, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. As I approached our table, I saw Mark scanning the room, probably looking for me. I took a deep breath and put on my best smile. "There you are," he said when I reached him. I was getting worried. "Sorry, I ran into one of Jessica's cousins in the restroom. We got to chatting." The lie came easily, frightening me with how natural it felt. Mark's hand found my waist, pulling me close. "You missed the cake cutting. Jessica was asking for you." I glanced toward the head table where Jessica was laughing at something Michael had said. She looked so happy, so innocent. Had she really been complicit in drugging me? What could they possibly want from me that required such measures? "I should go congratulate them," I said, moving to step away. Mark's grip tightened. "Later. They're busy now. Why don't you finish your champagne?" He nodded toward my still full glass. "Actually, I'm not feeling great. I think I might head home early." His expression darkened. "The party's just starting, Emma. Don't be a killjoy." I forced another smile. "I just need some pain medication for a headache. I'll come right back." Before he could protest further, I grabbed my purse and kissed his cheek. "Order me another champagne. I'll be back before you know it." As I walked away, I felt his eyes boring into my back. At the exit, I glanced back one last time. Mark was now talking to Michael, their heads close together. Jessica looked up and caught my eye across the room. For a moment, I thought I saw something cold and calculating in her gaze, something I'd never noticed before. Then she smiled and waved, and I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Almost. Outside in the parking lot, David was waiting by his car, as promised. As soon as I approached, he unlocked the doors, and I slid into the passenger seat, my heart still racing. "Did anyone follow you?" he asked, starting the engine. "I don't think so." I glanced back at the venue. "Mark thinks I'm going to get medication and coming back." David pulled out of the parking lot, driving faster than necessary. "We should have about 20 minutes before he realizes something's wrong and starts looking for you." "I still can't believe this," I said, my voice small. "Why would they do this? What could they possibly want from me?" David's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "I'm not entirely sure, but I've been suspicious of Mark and Michael for a while now. There's something not right about their friendship." "What do you mean?" "They're too close, too secretive. They have these private jokes, these meaningful looks when certain topics come up." David glanced at me. "And they've both been very interested in your inheritance." I stared at him. "My inheritance? I don't have an inheritance." "Your grandmother's estate, the one that's in trust until your 30th birthday next month?" My blood ran cold. I had almost forgotten about that. My grandmother had left me a substantial sum, but it was managed by a trust until I turned 30, which was happening in 3 weeks. It wasn't an enormous fortune, but it was enough to buy a nice house outright. "How do you know about that?" I asked. "Mark talks about it. A lot. He seems to know all the details." I felt sick. I had mentioned it to Mark once, maybe twice in passing. I never discussed the specifics because I didn't want it to change our relationship, but apparently he had been paying very close attention. "Jessica knows about it too," I said slowly. I told her when my grandmother first passed away. We drove in silence for a few minutes, my mind whirling with implications. Could my boyfriend and my best friend really be plotting to get access to my inheritance? And how would drugging me at the wedding further that goal? What exactly did you hear them say? I asked finally. David sighed. I was coming back from the restroom when I heard them in the groom's suite. The door was partially open. Mark said, "It's all set for tonight. Once Emma signs the papers, we're good to go." And Michael laughed and said something like, "Just make sure she's compliant enough to sign, but conscious enough for it to be legal." My stomach lurched. Papers? What papers? I don't know. But then Mark mentioned something about how after tonight, he'd never have to work another day in his life. I remembered how Mark had been pressuring me lately to move in together, to combine our finances for convenience. How he had casually mentioned that we should have a joint account in case of emergencies. I had put him off, saying we should wait until we were engaged at least. He wanted me to sign something tonight, I whispered. After the reception. David nodded grimly. And whatever it was, he didn't think you'd sign it willingly. We had reached my apartment building. David parked but kept the engine running. "You should pack a bag," he said. "Essentials only. You can stay at my place tonight. Mark doesn't know where I live." I nodded numbly. "Come up with me, I don't want to be alone." We took the elevator to my 5th floor apartment. As soon as I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. The lights were on, though I was certain I had turned everything off before leaving for the wedding. And there was a briefcase on my coffee table that wasn't mine. "Someone's been here," I whispered to David. He put a protective arm in front of me. "Stay behind me." We moved cautiously through the apartment. Everything looked normal except for the briefcase and a folder beside it labeled Financial Power of Attorney. With shaking hands, I opened the folder. Inside was a legal document giving Mark complete control over all my financial affairs, including the trust from my grandmother. It had spaces for my signature in multiple places, all conveniently marked with sticky tabs. "He was going to make me sign this," I said, my voice hollow. "Tonight, after drugging me." David examined the document. "This gives him access to everything. Bank accounts, investments, property. He could legally drain your accounts and you wouldn't be able to do anything about it." I sat heavily on the couch, the reality of the situation crashing down on me, and Jessica knew. She helped him. "I'm so sorry, Emma." David sat beside me, his face filled with genuine concern. I thought back to all the times Jessica had encouraged my relationship with Mark, how she had brushed aside my occasional concerns about his controlling behavior. "He just loves you so much," she would say. "You're lucky to have a man who cares that deeply." Had it all been a setup from the beginning? Had my best friend introduced me to Mark, knowing what kind of person he was, planning all along to help him access my inheritance? "We need to go," David said urgently, checking his watch. "They'll figure out you're not coming back soon if they haven't already." I nodded and went to my bedroom, throwing essential items into a duffel bag. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, important documents. As I was zipping up the bag, my phone rang. Jessica's face lit up on the screen. I showed it to David, who shook his head warningly. I declined the call, but immediately it rang again. This time it was Mark. "Turn it off," David advised. "Better yet, leave it here. They could track you with it." I hesitated, then placed the phone on my nightstand. "Let's go." We were halfway to the door when we heard the sound of a key in the lock. My blood froze. Only 2 people had keys to my apartment, me and Jessica, for emergencies. David reacted quickly, pulling me toward the balcony. "Fire escape," he whispered. We had just stepped outside when I heard Mark's voice from within the apartment. "Emma, are you here?" David closed the balcony door silently behind us and guided me down the fire escape. My heart was pounding so loudly I was certain they would hear it. When we reached the ground, we ran to David's car, keeping low. As we drove away, I saw Mark and Jessica emerging from my building, scanning the street. Jessica was still in her wedding dress, the white fabric ghostly under the streetlights. They didn't see us. "What now?" I asked, my voice trembling. "First, we get somewhere safe," David said firmly. "Then we contact the police and a lawyer. What they were planning is illegal, attempted drugging, fraud, possibly worse." "No one will believe me," I whispered. "It's my word against theirs. And Jessica just got married today. Everyone will think I'm making it up out of jealousy or something." "We have evidence," David reminded me. "The power of attorney documents in your apartment, for one. And I recorded part of their conversation." I looked at him in surprise. When I overheard them talking, I started recording on my phone. I didn't get all of it, but I got enough. Mark explicitly mentioning the drug and your signature. For the first time that night, I felt a glimmer of hope. "You recorded it?" David nodded. "I didn't trust Mark long before tonight. Something about him always seemed off to me. I've been watching him, waiting for him to show his true colors. Why? Why would you do that for me?" He glanced at me, his expression softening momentarily. "Because I've seen how he treats you, Emma. How he's been isolating you, controlling you. No one deserves that, especially not someone as kind as you." I felt tears welling up. Everything I thought I knew had been shattered tonight. My boyfriend, my best friend, both betrayed me in the worst possible way. Yet here was David, practically a stranger, risking his relationship with his own brother to protect me. "Thank you," I whispered. As we drove through the night, I wondered what tomorrow would bring. I had lost so much in a single evening, but perhaps I had also gained something unexpected, the truth and a genuine ally. The night at David's apartment was restless. I tossed and turned on his couch, my mind replaying the events of the evening. By morning, my phone had 17 missed calls and 23 text messages from Mark and Jessica. "Where are you?" "This isn't funny, Emma." "Is this about the papers?" It was going to be a surprise. Jessica's messages were worse somehow. "Don't ruin my wedding day with this drama." "You should block their numbers," David said, handing me coffee. "What's our next move?" "I contacted a lawyer friend. She can see us at 10, then police." I sipped my coffee. "They'll deny everything. Say I'm making it up. That's why we need to move quickly. The drug might still be detectable in that champagne glass." An hour later, we parked near the wedding venue. David had called ahead, posing as a guest who lost a watch. The venue was quiet compared to last night. A few workers were taking down decorations. The manager, Diane, greeted us. "You must be David," she said. "And this is—" "My girlfriend Emma," David replied smoothly. In the kitchen, a young man was loading dishwashers. David approached him. "We're looking for champagne glasses from last night's wedding." The man pointed to a box. "Those are all the flutes. We were about to wash them." David showed me a photo on his phone. "I took this last night." The glass had a small chip on the base. We examined each glass, finally finding one with the chip. David placed it in a plastic bag. As we turned to leave, a voice froze me. "Emma, what are you doing here?" Michael stood in the doorway, his eyes red-rimmed. David stepped in front of me. "We were just leaving." Michael's gaze flickered to the bag. "Jessica has been worried sick about you." "I'm sure they have," I replied. Michael took a step forward. "Whatever you think you know, you've got it all wrong." "By drugging me? By tricking me into signing away my finances?" His face hardened. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly, and so will the police." Something dangerous flashed in Michael's eyes. He lunged forward, grabbing for the bag. David shoved him back. "Run!" David shouted. We sprinted through the kitchen and out a service entrance. Michael gave chase. We reached David's car just as Michael emerged. David gave me the keys. "Start the car." I got the engine started as the men confronted each other. "You're making a huge mistake," Michael said. "You have no idea what you're getting involved in." "I know exactly what I'm doing," David replied. "Stopping you from defrauding an innocent woman." Michael laughed coldly. "Innocent? Emma isn't who you think she is." "Don't listen to him," I called. Michael's gaze shifted to me. "Tell him, Emma. Tell him about Phoenix." The name hit me like a blow. How could Michael know about that? David looked confused. I shook my head frantically. "He's lying," I said. "David, please, we need to go." David backed away from Michael and got in the car. We sped away. "What was he talking about?" David asked. "Who or what is Phoenix?" I stared out the window. "It's nothing. A lie." We drove in silence before I spoke again. "Phoenix was a project in college, a startup Jessica and I worked on. It failed badly. Some investors lost money. And that's relevant how? Jessica blamed me for the failure, said I mismanaged the finances, but it wasn't true. She misspent the funds. I covered for her." David nodded. "And she thinks she can use this against you?" "Maybe. It was years ago, but it's the only thing that makes sense." At the lawyer's office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. I know what really happened with Phoenix. Meet me alone or everyone will know. 1 hour, the coffee shop on 5th. I showed the message to David. "It's a trap," he said. "They're trying to separate us." "But what if they really do have something?" David took my hand. "Whatever happened in the past, it can't be worse than what they planned last night. We have the evidence. Trust me, Emma." I nodded, though doubt still gnawed at me. What did they know about Phoenix that I didn't? The meeting with Rachel Winters, David's lawyer friend, was both reassuring and sobering. What they planned constitutes attempted drugging, fraud, and possibly conspiracy, she explained. The recording is damning, but the champagne glass is crucial evidence. We went directly to the police station afterward. Detective Simmons listened carefully to our story, his expression grave. He took the champagne glass for testing and made copies of the power of attorney documents. "We'll need to question all parties involved," he said. "You should prepare for them to counter with their own accusations." On our way out, my phone rang. Jessica. Against David's advice, I answered on speaker. "Emma, please." Her voice was tearful. "This is all a misunderstanding." "You helped Mark try to drug me," I said coldly. "No, I didn't know what he was planning until it was too late." "He threatened me, Emma. Said he'd tell Michael things about Phoenix, things even you don't know." I felt a chill. "What things?" "I can't say over the phone. Please meet me. Alone. I'm scared of what Mark might do." David was shaking his head vehemently. I covered the phone. "It's another trap," he whispered. I uncovered the phone. "Anything you want to say, you can say in front of David and the police." Jessica's tone changed instantly. "You stupid bitch. You have no idea what you're up against. Mark isn't working alone." "What do you mean?" "There's more money involved than just your inheritance, much more. People you don't want to cross." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you. Drop this now or you'll regret it. We all will." The call ended abruptly. I stared at the phone, shaken. "We need to go back to the detective," David said. As we turned around, my phone buzzed with an email from Jessica with the subject, "Phoenix Evidence." Attached was a document, financial records from our college startup, with my signature authorizing transfers to offshore accounts. Accounts I knew nothing about. "These are fake," I whispered. "I never signed these." "They're setting you up," David realized. "Making it look like you embezzled from Phoenix." We hurried back to Detective Simmons, showing him the email. They're trying to discredit me before I can testify against them, I explained. He nodded thoughtfully. This adds another dimension. I'll expedite the lab work on the glass. That evening at David's apartment, we ordered takeout but barely ate. The reality of what we were facing was sinking in. Mark and Jessica weren't just opportunistic con artists. They were organized, prepared, and apparently backed by someone powerful. You should stay somewhere else tonight, David said. If they found your phone, they might track you here. Where would I go? Before he could answer, his phone rang. Detective Simmons. We got the results back on the champagne glass, he said. Traces of Rohypnol, consistent with your story. We're bringing Mark and Michael in for questioning tonight. Jessica, too. Relief washed over me. Thank you, Detective. Don't thank me yet. Stay vigilant. These people have resources. After hanging up, David looked at me seriously. This isn't over. Whatever they're involved in goes beyond just your inheritance. What do we do now? We get you somewhere safe until the arrests are made. I have a cabin about 2 hours from here. No one knows about it except my mother. We packed quickly and were heading to his car when we spotted a black SUV parked across the street. 2 men inside were watching the building. Back door, David whispered, pulling me toward the service exit. We slipped out into the alley behind his building and walked briskly to a neighboring parking garage where David kept a second car. For emergencies, he explained. As we drove out of the city, I felt both terrified and strangely free. My life had been shattered, but the truth was finally emerging. Why are you helping me? I asked. You've risked everything. David glanced at me. I've watched Mark manipulate people for years. I couldn't stand by while he did it to you. Even though he's your brother, especially because he's my brother, I know what he's capable of. At the cabin, with a fire crackling in the hearth, David received a text from Detective Simmons. Arrests made, all 3 in custody. Evidence from their phones corroborates your account. Safe to come back tomorrow. For the first time in 24 hours, I allowed myself to cry. For the friendship I'd lost, the betrayal I'd suffered, and the narrow escape I'd made. David sat beside me, offering silent support. When my tears subsided, he handed me a glass of water. Your inheritance is safe, he said, and so are you. Thanks to you, I replied, meeting his eyes. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You don't have to. Just promise me one thing. Don't let this break your ability to trust. Not everyone is like them. I nodded slowly. I think I'm already learning that lesson. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the world in a clean white blanket. Tomorrow would bring police statements, legal proceedings, and rebuilding my life. But tonight, in this peaceful cabin with someone who had risked everything to protect me, I found something unexpected: hope. Sometimes the most painful betrayals lead us to unexpected allies, and sometimes a warning whispered at a wedding toast can change everything. Don't drink from your glass.